Welcome back to the Tech Talks Daily podcast, and I'm excited to bring you Lubo Smid, the CEO and co-founder of STRV, a software design and engineering company that's built products for prominent startups such as Class Dojo, The Athletic, The Citizen, as well as established brands like Microsoft and Barry's. But today, I've invited Lubo on the podcast to share his incredible journey of building a $20 million company, working with Fortune 500 brands and living on the edge. So get ready to hear about the ups and downs he's faced, along with the valuable peak performance secrets and non-business strategies that can help anyone listening today fuel their business growth. I'm going to ask Lubo to expand on why every business, every entrepreneur should embrace Web3 and blockchain, and we'll discuss the future of technology, its impact on various industries, from mastering other areas of life to improving business performance to prioritising and executing during these challenging times where we all find ourselves right now. So buckle up and hold on tight as I beam your ears all the way stateside to bring Lubo onto the podcast to talk about how he navigated the volatile world of blockchain, while also sharing unique insights into the challenges of market adoption and for the potential of future innovations. But enough from me. Let's get Lubo onto the podcast now. So, massive warm welcome to the show. Can you tell the listeners a little about who you are and what you do?
Yeah, I would love that. Thank you so much for having me. I'm Lubo Smid, one of the co-founders and the CEO of STRV, which is a software design and engineering company that focuses on building great digital products. And we have been around for almost 2 decades, so engaged on building a lot of really cool digital products for hot startups as well as bigger brands out there. And yeah, that's what I have been doing pretty much since high school. That's how I got to engineering. And when I encountered building software is really, really cool. And you can actually make a big difference with, just creating great digital products. So that's kind of a part of my journey.
And you have had an incredible journey, incredible career. And one of the things I always try and do on this podcast is take the guest way back to the very, very beginning, maybe where that passion for technology come from, or maybe a moment that would put them on the path. So Lubo, can you share your origin story, your journey from starting as a freelance web developer in high school to building STRV, a $20 million software design and engineering company that works with so many Fortune 500 brands? But where did it all begin? What's your origin story?
Yeah, I think that it really comes down to being curious and looking under the hood of things. And that pretty much started with the first computer that I was able to put my hands on, because I often say that I was not really in for the games as most of the people around me were at the time, but I was in it for basically looking at what's inside. And at that time, it was mostly hardware, and I was looking really into the very fine details of how do I change this piece of hardware for that piece, and what are all of these components for. And I did not have any prior experience, but I would just pretty much learn by doing mistakes. And I would try to mix and match components and do all of that. So that was the very beginning. And then it led to exposing myself into building software, and really started with super small, tiny things. And I think building websites and starting with PHP at the time. That was the entry level, right? That was what people were starting with. But I managed to get some first gigs throughout high school and was building websites, and that way was able to make decent living while studying and build up a good foundation. I think that I was never a good software engineer. I was okay-ish at the very best. And I have not touched any code for almost a decade now, but I think I got a good grasp of what it was all about, and that kind of set me up for success when I was done with my studies, and I was like, okay, what do I do seriously now? And that's where I met up with my co-founders, and we started building STRV, and the rest is history. It grew quite rapidly from there, and we're able to like get great team members on board. And I think that it also helped us that we were really pursuing the vision of building great digital products, not just building anything out there.
And I'm curious, do you miss those coding days, rolling up your sleeves, getting dirty under the hood, where everything happens? Do you miss those days?
I do in a way. And like, of course, like we do a lot of things at STRV right now. We have our own division of Heavy Labs where we build products on our own. And I love rolling up my sleeves and diving into the product and discussing with the engineers and designers the features and the user flows. It's not that related to the actual coding, but just like diving in and discussing the product in greater detail. And it could be the same with the clients when we are talking to them, just to understand where they see the business potential and then leverage the experience that I have gained to help them advise on what should be the product direction. So I still do that. It's not related to coding, but rather to setting up a good digital strategy.
Yeah, 100%. And fast forward to 2023, you are the CEO and co-founder of STRV, and I'm curious, when you look back, what are some of the ups and downs you've experienced in your journey to help any other startup founders listening? And how have you managed to maintain focus for over a decade while also pushing yourself out your comfort zone? Because it's incredibly difficult, isn't it, to do that?
Oh man, there's been so many ups and downs, and I feel like every entrepreneurial journey is paved with those, that if you don't experience these up and downs, then like what are you doing, right? It's part of our daily routine that either things are entirely falling apart or everything is bright and shiny. And so you go through those, and sometimes they are client related, sometimes they are team related, sometimes they could be also related to finance, and they just keep happening on a recurring basis all the time. And on top of that, you have the market shifts. One of them we see right now with what's happening in the financial sector. And like last year, it was the war. A couple of years before that, it was the pandemic. And these situations always impact the business as well. And you need to be able to react to them quickly. And there's just so many. And I think that if you like what you do, then there is some sort of ease that you find handling these situations. And also, I think that you need to think about, as the company progresses, whether you are positioned for success, right? Because if you are building a company from the ground up, you are likely handling different situations, and you encounter different obstacles than when you are managing a company that's been around for quite a while, already has hundreds of people on board. And like, you just need to, I think, course correct whether you are still tackling it from the right angle. And this has been something very helpful for me to, from time to time, like I would say, detach a little bit and look at things from a grander perspective and be able to course correct.
Yeah, completely agree with you, especially around, he was talking there about the challenge of being distracted by the new, the bright and the shiny. And we're recording this podcast today at a time where most people out there, judging by my newsfeed, are distracted by generative AI. So I've got to ask, because one of the things that attracted me to you and wanted me to get you on this podcast was when I see that you were promoting and saying that you believe that all businesses and entrepreneurs must embrace Web3 and blockchain technology. So can you expand on that, and also what potential you see for those that stay ahead of this emerging trend?
Yeah, I feel very strongly about this one in particular, and I think that we see what's happening with like the centralization of power in the world, and I think that what Web3 is bringing is to neutralize that and to allow people to do things that they would not be able to do otherwise. And I think that there was a big hype last year and the year before when it comes to Web3, and now we are in the adoption phase where big brands are taking it very seriously, and they are building their Web3 strategies, and they are investing a lot of money and focus into it. But it's not being talked about that much publicly, and I think that's the interesting period where great products are being built. And in my opinion, there will be a way bigger adoption on the flip side, and there are a lot of different angles how to think about that. But in my opinion, just like what can happen with the financial sector when we bring more adoption to this could be tremendous. And thing like you mentioned, what's happening in the AI space right now. And I think all of this ties together. It's not like that one trend would be taking over. And like, I think that there is a big rise of technologies overall. And I think that AI and Web3 are probably the two that are taking the prime right now. But I'm a big fan of decentralization and just providing people with better access to the core services, right? We all need to be able to transact, and we want to do it in a very fast and cheap manner. And just the sheer volume of financial services that people can access through blockchain is amazing. And suddenly, like, there is an opportunity for everyone to tap into that. And like, are there regulations needed? Yes, to some sort. But I think that we need to find where the line is in terms of like what should be controlled and what should be like fully left alone.
And something else I think we've got to highlight, you're also the founder of Enter, which is an NFT ticketing and token gating solution built on blockchain. So based on your experiences there, can you share the kind of challenges with market adoption as well as your thoughts on the metaverse, where it's all heading? Because you're right in the heart of all this.
Yeah, and that's probably the project that I'm the most passionate about. It's called Enter.xyz. The reason why I entered this space is that I saw an immense opportunity to take a role in the Web3 rise and bring some useful products to this space and leverage also the decade-plus long experience that I have with building software. Because in Web3, unfortunately, like, we still have a lot of obstacles. And I think that ticketing is an amazing gateway for people to start interacting with blockchain pretty much without even knowing it. And so we build a solution for ticketing that is fully embracing the power of blockchain. So every single ticket is an NFT that is minted on Polygon. And the big difference that we see there is that we don't really need people to know that it's on blockchain. So they can still come and get their ticket with an email address, pay with their credit card. At the same time, we are very much open to people that come with their crypto wallet and want to pay in crypto as well. So we are bridging the gap between Web 2 and Web 3. And I think that this approach is very much needed for the greater adoption of this. And you might ask, why ticketing? Why this is the point of entry into the Web3? And like, it's simple, because like we all use different kinds of ticketing services on daily basis, and if not daily, weekly for sure, right? We all go to different kinds of events, and it's very natural for us. It's something that we do. So having these entry points, like, we all transact financially, we all go to events, and this is pretty much where it starts. And I think as Web3 expands, there is going to be a lot of data that we'll be able to tap into and reach more of these token gating features and everything. But there I think is an immense opportunity. And I have not even tapped into the benefits of blockchain for the ticketing industry overall, because I think that ultimately there's a lot of things that are broken in the ticketing industry. And just to name a few, one is what's happening with the secondary market, and And the second one would be fake tickets, right? Just making sure that when you have a ticket, you can 100% confirm that it's a valid, legit ticket. So the proof of authenticity is pretty much straightforward with the blockchain solutions. And so there's a lot. I could talk just about Enter, but I would probably defer to you. Where do you want me to tap into?
One of the things I loved about what you said there was about interacting with blockchain without people knowing. And I think that's the key, really, because if we look at, I don't know, Spotify, Amazon, Netflix, we all get personalized experiences through complex AI algorithms, but we don't care or know what technology we're using. But for any doubters out there listening who are struggling to believe that Web3 and blockchain are the future, can you provide a vision of how you see the future and why people should be so excited?
Yeah, and I think it's democratizing the access to the technology and getting the benefits out of it. And you mentioned Spotify and you mentioned some of the others, right? But Spotify is a great service, but they still control everything that is happening on the platform, right? It's not in the hands of the creators, the musicians, and so on. And I think that and this is, I'm just picking one particular example, but there is a huge play with the licensing labels and with the producers of music. And in the end, the creators themselves are tied to these deals and they can't really take full ownership of, the stuff that they create. And so what I think the Web3 movement and blockchain could help with, democratizing the access to allow them to control their destiny and allow them to control everything, right? And then putting it out there and having everybody to collaborate on that and to build on top of, pending that they set the right foundation. And there's a lot of projects that are operating in the music industry that are trying to tap into it, that are helping the musicians to release their new albums and get early access to music and monetize that. I think it's just a great example of what the technology can bring. But as you mentioned, we don't need to know that it's powered by blockchain. We just need to be able to leverage the benefits of the technology. And as the access to this, then we'll be able to see more and more of these use cases.
And aside from the tech for a moment, you're an incredibly busy guy. I know you spin a lot of plates. So I'm going to ask you now on behalf of every startup founder that could be listening around the world, can you share your secret on how to prioritize things like sleep, exercise, nutrition, mindfulness in your daily life while running a 200-person company, and what specific steps listeners can do to grow their business by mastering these areas? And ultimately, do you have a Mark Wahlberg style regime? Is there something like that going on?
Well, I would say there is not a silver bullet solution to prioritizing, taking care of yourself, prioritizing sleep. I think that you really deeply need to understand that these things are important if you want to stick around for a little bit. And I think it's very hard for people in their 20s to really understand that. I think it's a lot more apparent for people in their 30s and 40s to suddenly realize, oh, shoot, I need to do something with it. And I have learned the hard way. As you know, I was able to work 16 hours a day in my 20s, no problem, every single day, including weekends. Well, a decade later, you can't really keep up with that, and you need to start incorporating a bit more of a balance. But I think what it also gives you is the opportunity to realize, is everything related to the level of direct output that I produce? And it's clearly not. If you have laid a little bit of foundation, then you should probably have a decent team around yourself that you can leverage and you can delegate. But going back to what I started with, I think you need to be convinced yourself that these things like physical and mental health have the priority, so you can actually give it the time that it deserves and set the boundaries between how much dedication you are actually going to give to the business and what's going to be the like effort that you put into taking care of your health. And for me, there is some non-negotiables, like for me, making sure that I can get a workout in on a daily basis and making sure that I get enough sleep. These are non-negotiables. I want to make sure that in my schedule, this is always included. And I will frankly not go with adding like more meetings and so on just to compromise these, because in the it will catch up, and you don't want that. So I think just sorting it out in your head is the great first step, and then also introducing these habits rather slowly than because you are not gonna change your life and your habits from one day to another. But if you, and there is this idea of improving things by 1% a day, right? If you improve something by 1% a day, imagine what impact it makes within the span of a year, or even better, within a span of a lifetime. Yeah. It is insane. Versus if you want to go from 0 to 100 overnight, then it's likely not going to work out. I think that for me, it's really convincing yourself that this should take priority. And I have to say, as I progress, I give it more and more attention. I try to set healthy boundaries in terms of what's the amount of time that I want to spend in meetings on a daily basis. What are some of the recurring tasks that I want to be doing on weekly or monthly and so on, just to make sure to learn about, okay, what do I need to delegate? And I think that every single founder, as he or she progresses throughout building a company, needs to be able to learn how to delegate better and better and better, because that's all you need to do to be successful. Have the right people around you, delegate to them, set the right strategy, and be the cheerleader for the ride. And
I completely agree with you, especially on the marginal gains, improving things by just 1%, the impact that can make. And also agree with you, you said that nobody can go from 0 to 100 overnight, but everyone seems to want to take shortcuts. And I do wonder sometimes if it's because we look at someone such as yourself on the summit of the mountain, we celebrate your success and don't always see the climb, the struggle, where all the learning and winning is done. So can I ask you share the story of how you overcome one of the most difficult periods in your business, such as handling the company during the pandemic, losing half your clients almost overnight, and then managing the economic crisis afterwards while maintaining a healthy mindset? Because again, it's so important for, I think, startup founders to hear stories like this.
Yeah, for me, it is also looking at what's the worst case scenario that can happen.
Yeah.
And if you are comfortable with the worst case scenario, then anything better is a smooth ride, pretty much. And I think just the willingness to accept the huge risk and knowing what's on the other side. And a lot of people tell you that there's only plan A, there is no plan B. And I see it the same way. I don't have plan Bs, but I always try to assess, okay, if things don't work out, what's the possibly worst thing that can happen? And then as you go deeper and deeper and deeper, you realize, okay, unless, there is something that is health related or related to my family and friends, what does that really matter? And so just put these things in a perspective of, navigating the business and the company forward. And then, yes, if you lose half of your revenue from one day to another, that's not pleasant at all. At the same time, I think pandemic was very unprecedented and then was pretty much facing the same challenge. So people were extremely supportive from pretty much anywhere, right? So I think that helped a lot to have the collective support and to have a strong foundation of a team that helped me to get through it. And also when you encounter these situations, maybe there is decisions that you were thinking about for a long time, but they were either tough to make or they were just not prioritized. But suddenly, when you are to save the company in a crucial time, you need to make these decisions in a matter of hours, days, in a very short time frame. And it really helps to restructure and to make things better. So when I look at these situations, they always allowed me to execute on the ideas that I would probably take a lot longer to execute on if I operate normally. So to me, that is also opening up an opportunity to make bigger changes and just figure out the way how to get out of it. But I think important to keep the spirit positive.
Awesome. And before I let you go, for any aspiring entrepreneurs looking to build successful companies in the tech industry, particularly in areas such as software design, engineering, Web3, blockchain, metaverse, etc., is there any advice that you would offer to those aspiring entrepreneurs?
Many. I think that one of them would be that it's important to surround yourself with the great people, because they are going to be the ones that will support you in tough times. So, and it's very hard to go on the journey just yourself. So figuring out who are your supporters, who are the people that you want to surround yourself with and build a strong bond. And as you are encountering on the journey, make sure that you love it, because if you have the passion, then a lot of things are easier.
Fantastic advice. And I can't thank you enough for coming on here and sharing your wisdom, insights and experiences. But before I let you go, I'm going to try and manifest something for you now. There's a lot of people listening to this podcast all over the world. Some big names in tech have either listened or been guests on this podcast. So I'm going to ask you now, if you could choose one person in the world to have lunch or breakfast with, who would that person be and why?
I think that seeing what's happening in the world, and there is clearly one person that I would love to have a lunch with. And if you can make it happen, that would be great. If not, I will keep trying. But that definitely is Elon Musk. And I think that I would love to just get inside of his brain and understand how he thinks about everything. Because the sheer volume of things that he has managed to do is amazing. I'm a big fan of his, but not sure how feasible it is to grab a lunch with him in the foreseeable future, but he is definitely an inspiring person, a very controversial one as well. But I try to follow what he does. And if there is another person that I would love to grab a lunch with, it's definitely Lex Friedman, because just of his point of view on the world and the way how he's able to navigate the conversations, there is some very deep wisdom, and I think I would tremendously enjoy the conversation as well.
Wow, two great choices. Aim high. We'll put it out into the ether. Let's see what we can make happen. All I ask is you do let me know if anything comes of this, and we'll keep that conversation going. But for anyone listening, just wanting to find out more information about STRV, enter, the work you're doing, contact your team, what's the best starting point for everything?
Yeah, I think on social media, the best way to find out about myself is to look for my social handles. It's Lubo Smid on pretty much all the social media platforms. And for STRV, STRV.com is our website where you can learn about all things STRV that are related to building great digital products.
Awesome. We covered so much in a short amount of time there, from the ups and downs of your journey, building a $20 million company and working with Fortune 500 brands, why you believe businesses and entrepreneurs alike should embrace Web3 and blockchain. And also, so much great tips in there, from marginal gains, etc., and the importance of looking after yourself if you're a startup founder or entrepreneur. But just thank you for sharing your wisdom with me today. Big thank you.
All right, lovely. Thank you so much, Neil.
That's a wrap, everyone, on an incredibly insightful conversation. Cannot thank Lubo enough for coming on the podcast, sharing his journey of building a $20 million company, working with Fortune 500 brands, pushing himself to the limit. And I hope that you gain valuable insights into some of his peak performance secrets and non-business strategies that can help anyone fuel their growth. But of course, this is a tech podcast, and it was exploring his perspective on why businesses and entrepreneurs should embrace Web3 and blockchain, and also delving into the importance of staying mindful during these challenging times. I think it was his experiences and wisdom that really provided a roadmap for entrepreneurs listening, looking to navigate this ever-changing world of technology and business. But if you are a startup founder or an entrepreneur, was today's conversation helpful for you? Is there anything that you thought was missing from the conversation? Anything you disagreed with? Anything you'd like to add? Or you simply have a question or you want to come on the podcast? Whatever it is, please email me, techblogwriter@outlook.com, Twitter, LinkedIn, just at Neil C. Hughes. And if you enjoyed yourself today, please hit that subscribe button. Don't miss out on future episodes. And if possible, leave a rating and reviews. Share the episode with your friends and colleagues. Anything that helps us beat the algorithm together has got to be a good thing. So stay curious, keep learning, keep pushing the boundaries of innovation. And until next time, don't be a stranger.